What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Samuel Jake. I'm a photographer, filmmaker, and I just wanted to talk today about 5 things that you could do to make yourself a better photographer immediately. I truly believe that if you focus on these things and are just aware of them at least, you will take another step in your photography. Practicing photography, if you love photography, I'm assuming that you're practicing it a lot. So I'll have videos where I talk about how to use things, equipment, creatively and whatnot. These tips are mostly just things to focus on as you are doing that, practicing and making your photography better. So let's get into it. First thing I wanted to talk about is networking. In anything that you do, any business, any venture that you want to do, networking is super key, super important. And I think that photography especially is something that needs a lot of networking to happen. Like if you want your work to be seen, you need to meet the right people, whether that be meeting them to have them be your subject, or maybe they have like a cool car or a cool opportunity that they can give to you that you can shoot. That's always a good thing to know people and to make relationships and build upon those relationships. Photography is such a interesting thing where you're having an exchange with someone usually, and more times than not, it's good to have just these cool relationships, in your back pocket. And so whether or not you're like shooting them as a subject, or you're just getting to know them to maybe put your stuff into a gallery or to share your stuff to a certain person, or on top of that, like if you want to shoot somebody doing something cool, like I do a lot of action stuff, so having somebody that is good at what they do is really important. You want to have interesting things to shoot, because you can work your whole life and be such a great photographer, but you can only go so far, in my opinion, if you don't have an interesting subject. And so there's all types of photography, there's landscape and abstract things and very artistic things that you don't necessarily need like a subject or a person, but more times than not, people are starting out and working with people. And so it's just definitely a good thing to work on your people skills and socialize, introduce yourself, and bring value to the people that you surround yourself with. I think that photography has a huge part of networking. I think it's the most important thing that you can do, and just grow your friendships and grow the opportunities that you can generate just by meeting people. I've seen friends of mine who are underqualified for jobs, not even in photography, but if they meet the right person, they have these opportunities to present themselves. And so really focus on making connections that are good and that are going to lead to opportunities for you to show your value. Really, at the end of the day, practice so that you can be ready for these opportunities when they come, and so that's what I always try to do, is just make sure that I am practicing and working on my craft to where I'm always ready, no matter what it is. So that's what a professional is, just make sure you're able to capitalize on the opportunities that come. So networking, super, super big. Number 2, I want to talk about lighting. And so lighting is super important because you have artificial lighting, you have diffused artificial lighting, you have natural sunlight, you have colored lighting, and strobe lighting, continuous lighting. And the more that you can understand about what lighting is and how you can shape it, the better that you'll be as a photographer. Photography is the capturing of light. And so just even this scenario that I have set up back here, it just creates something, and so when you're shooting, understanding, where the sun's going to be at certain times of the day, certain times of the year, super important for when you show up to a shoot, to be aware of where the sun's rising and setting. In the winter, the sun sets way lower than it does in the summer, which is way higher overhead, and so you're going to get a different shadow look. And so whether that be for a portrait or automotive photography or whatever, you're going to have different techniques that you're going to want to learn to make it look the best. And so harsh light is really difficult to figure out for a lot of people, but once you can kind of understand how to shoot in harsh light, then everything else will become a little bit easier. So like sunset, sunrise, blue hour, before the sun comes out, I love shooting in there, or after the sun goes down. Everything's super diffused, there's no shadows. I love shooting in the shade, that's just my personal preference. But if I am shooting in direct sunlight, I love using polarized filters. Polarized filters are basically what I use all the time. It creates such a cool effect. It takes any highlights or any reflections that are, coming from the sun or whatever light source that is put into the lens, and it just like neutralizes it, so it has more of a clean, not as contrasted of a look. And so that's the type of filter that I use all the time. So understanding how to use that is super important. Using ND filters is really cool. For action stuff, for me, you can control, motion and capture motion in, sunlight. And I think that that's super important, to just be able to utilize the different techniques that you can have with different filters and different times of day and different motion captures. And so you want to have a good understanding of shadows and lighting and rebounding light, and using diffusers and using strobe photography or continuous lighting. And understanding all that stuff is just going to give you a huge step up in whatever situation that you get involved in. So focus on lighting. Third thing I want to talk about is camera gear. Like, I am a huge gearhead, and I love trying out different lenses, and it's really interesting because there's a fine line in between going overboard and buying things that you don't need, especially if you don't have work that will pay for it. I am a huge advocate of getting gear that inspires you, but at the same time being honest with yourself and say, do I really need that? Can I afford it? Is this a good business investment for me? And a lot of times it's not. I always felt like I needed more gear, and you don't need more gear. Just use the gear that you have, learn what you can, and just practice with it as much as you can. And once you get to the point where you feel like you need to get a lens that's gonna make your photography better, or get a different camera body, make sure that you're making enough money to back that up, back up what you're actually doing. You're just gonna get into a cycle of just buying gear and never actually making money with photography. And I was victim to that. I have so much gear that I've spent and I don't necessarily even use. And it was for a business thing, don't do what I did. Be direct and intentional with what you're purchasing, so that you can take advantage of your business. You can make the most of it. And so I'll talk about in a different video what lenses I would suggest to go for first, just so you have a good array, you have a good selection. But the gear that you have is the most important gear. Utilize the gear that you have, that you can afford and that makes sense for what you're doing. It's always good to want gear and to aspire to have more, but at the end of the day, create, practice, learn about all these other things before you focus on the gear. Gear is important, and it will limit you. You definitely need good gear to get to a certain threshold, but until you get to that point, don't worry about it. Just keep practicing, just keep getting better, keep networking, learning about light, and then the gear will come. Fourth thing I wanted to talk about is location. I live in Utah. I'm a very outdoorsy person. I've lived here my whole life. My backyard is, these amazing mountains. The Wasatch Mountains are crazy, and this whole entire state is just full of people adventuring, skiing, snowboarding. Have some of the best skiing and snowboarding resorts in the world here. And so we've had a crazy snow season, so I've been up in the canyons just constantly shooting people and just having as much fun as possible. And so here in Utah, we have all the outdoor stuff, rock climbing, mountain biking, all that winter sports stuff. Just the list goes on and on here. So it's perfect for me. But elsewhere, it's just a really scenic place. And so just being familiar with the different areas that you have access to where you live is always going to be a good thing. It's really fun to go location scouting and to have opportunity to get to know different areas, and then it can inspire you to be better, inspire you to use your equipment. That's really what I'm trying to get at, is that, inspiration is kind of difficult to muster just from your home and just with the gear that you have. If you have the gear and you're excited to use it and you're networking with people and then you're learning about lighting and you have a cool location, everything's going to work out. You're going to get to the situation, you're going to be excited to go there, you're going to have a good time, you're going to, learn from it, and you're going to grow. Practice makes perfect, but it's always good to be prepared and to know what you're doing beforehand and have all those things dialed in before you show up, so that it's just not like you're having to figure it all out from nothing. Be prepared. Understand where you're going, how you're going to use your equipment, how you're going to capture the lighting, who you're going to capture, and that it's just like a whole experience. Plan things beforehand. The majority of like when I first started, I would just ask somebody to shoot. We would go and shoot, and it would kind of just be like this random situation. And I'm at a point where I can kind of just show up and make things happen. I think that's what a professional can do. But back when I first started, it was kind of just like this random, oh, that would be kind of cool. And it's fun to just kind of make things happen, you know, willy-nilly or just kind of randomly. But really what's going to make you take the next step is if you're prepared and you know already beforehand, you have this idea, and then you capitalize on that idea. You'll become more efficient. Things will be a lot more dialed in, and it's just going to go better. You're going to learn quicker. You're going to learn, you know, people are going to take you more seriously too. If you have this idea that you're capturing and you follow through on that idea, and you're able to like make that happen with whoever you are, you know, collaborating with, you're networking with, you know, whoever sees this content, they're gonna be able to tell. And so the fifth thing that I want to talk about is just studying. And so like we have the internet, like have access to so many great YouTube videos, so many great people that are putting out awesome information. And that's really what I want to do. And so like, you know, if you like this kind of content, consider hitting the subscribe button. I'll link people down below that I follow, that I appreciate what they do, the work that they do to give information to me. It's kind of hard for me to follow somebody because I just kind of don't really like getting a ton of notifications. So like the people that I follow, I feel like are really honest. They're to the point. They don't fluff. It's not necessarily like an advertisement, which I think YouTube has a lot of, just like, you know, you're getting spammed with ads from whatever company that is getting sponsored by them. And so I don't know. I just think that having a genuine, honest take on camera equipment and whatnot is like a super valuable thing. Networking is important. Do it in your own way, and you'll see a lot of success just from networking. And then lighting, super important. It's how we do everything that we do with photography. If you understand that more, if you study that more, you're going to get a lot better. If you know your gear and you show up and you're prepared and you utilize it and you're practicing constantly, you're going to get more gigs. You're going to get more opportunities to create value and to share that value, and that's going to lead to you getting better equipment. Don't invest in things that you don't need. Don't break the bank. Don't go broke on an idea, on a new lens, on whatever. It's not worth it. Fourth thing is location. Get to know the area that you're in. Go out and shoot as much as you can, and things are going to get better and better and better and better and better. Repetition, practice, so important with photography. It keeps your momentum going. And it's just going to make you so much more stoked and so much more happy about getting the results, editing them, and becoming better. These are all tips that have nothing to do with like actually the function of using the camera. And I promise you, if you are just at least aware of these things and just know about them and just like are conscious of all these different things, you're going to get better. You're going to see different results, because if you just focus solely on taking pictures, you are only going to get so far. It's going to take a lot longer. These 5 tips are going to make all aspects of your photography way better. Really am here just to like help and to share an honest opinion and honest perspective of what I go through and what I do every single day. You know, definitely connect with me, commenting, follow my Instagram. Would love to connect with you. I'm kind of over Instagram and that kind of social media life, and so I'm just checking out YouTube for the first time. So I feel like there's a way better engagement here, and so I'd love to see that in the comments. And so if you have any questions, anything, just let me know, and I'd be more than happy to connect with you there. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.